Hi, my name is Patrick and this is Prep Mindful, your daily video practice and mindful test prep. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about what brought me to this work and share a story about my experience junior year with which you may or may not be able to relate. After I graduated college 7 years ago, I was drawn to become an SAT and ACT tutor because junior year almost killed me. I was overwhelmed and anxious, and I hadn't developed the habits and routines that would lead to a stable life, never mind a productive one. And I started Prep Mindful as a way to share some of those things. Maybe you know the story. I wasn't sleeping enough, so I was having trouble focusing in school, so I wasn't performing very well on my assessments. And then I was feeling bad about myself, so I would go home and I didn't want to feel that way anymore, so I would get high. And then I wouldn't be able to get very much homework done, but I would still be up pretty late watching TV or YouTube, so I wouldn't sleep very well, and then I would go into school the next day and I would have trouble focusing, so I wouldn't do very well, and on the circle would go. And I could see the story I told myself about myself crumbling around me. You know, up to that point, the first 16, 17 years of my life, I considered myself someone who was an achiever and smart and prepared and funny and playful and, the kind of person you might want to be around. And then in the mire of the anxiety and the stress and how I was mistreating myself and not setting myself up to succeed, all of those things seemed to be false, no longer true about me, and I didn't know who I was anymore. I was being faced with evidence that what I thought was true about myself was not, in fact, true. And it felt like my chances at going to an elite college like my older siblings had were also disappearing. And I felt like a failure and a fraud. I wasn't living up to my responsibilities, and I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain in the relationships that I had. I wasn't proud of the person I was. And then one day I tried to pull another all-nighter to finish this research paper, and I failed. I guess I did stay up the whole night, but 3 Red Bulls will do that to you. But I didn't finish the paper, and my mom, she confronted me with love, and she said, "What are the changes that we need to make so that this stops happening?" But at the time, I wasn't really able to imagine things getting better. So what I said to her was the only change I could imagine, which was ending my life. And I could see that disturbed her, and she was very surprised, but I think she didn't really know what to say. And so she left to go run some errands, and I went upstairs to, shower off all of the stress sweat that I had experienced over the night. And then about 5 minutes later, I heard this violent banging on the door of the bathroom, and I hopped out of the shower and I dried off, and I could hear my mom sobbing on the other side of the door. And I put on my boxers and I opened up the door, and I'd never seen my mom so upset. And so I hugged her because that's what I do when I see my mom really upset. And I'll never forget, she said to me, "Do you understand that my life would be over if you did that?" I mean, she could barely get the words out. She was crying so hard. But then she said, "Do you understand that your sisters' lives would be over if you did that?" And I'm not going to pretend that in that moment I snapped to clarity and I saw the meaning of it all and I was blissful ever since, but it was the first time that it had really been driven home for me that my life was not just about me. It wasn't mine. I was in a network. I was connected to a group of people who loved me, and I had a responsibility to them to respond in kind and act with love toward them. I think all of my focus on my problems and the things that I wasn't doing well enough at and what my future was going to look at had led me to entirely miss the point. And at that point in my life, I didn't consider my time on earth to be a gift, and I didn't think about things in terms of opportunity and what were all the different ways I could serve. It felt like everything I did was just an opportunity to fail. But that was a matter of perspective and the way that I was framing things and the kind of self-talk that I was using. And again, I'm not saying that ever since then I've been a goddamn rock star and every day is easy breezy beautiful. But I've been working with my students and with myself over the last 7 years with these feelings of anxiety and overwhelm and stress to try to figure out what are the paths that we can take to better design a life that we might be proud of, and one that honors the people who care about us and the position that we've been in, to be able to serve and to give and to help everyone achieve their potential. So I started Prep Mindful because I've stumbled a lot along my path. But, I've picked up a walking stick here and, a compass there, and there are a few tools and techniques and concepts and ways to put ourselves in a different frame of mind that I wish that I had the first time around, and things maybe wouldn't have gotten so dark for me. I wouldn't trade any of those times. Sometimes you don't know how far down the fall is until you get right up to the edge, but I know that I was scared of what I might do, and I scared my own family. And I don't think it ever needed to get that bad. I think if I had had some of the techniques that I'm talking about here and some of the ways of reframing what I was experiencing, I would have been able to live in a much more stable zone. So I'm not here to save anybody, obviously, but if integrating these techniques and concepts and building a consistent daily practice toward the college prep process, if that helps to make the worst day of your year only 80% as bad as that day that I had, then I can't imagine an investment of time that would be more worthwhile. So I hope that these things help you along your path, and I'm here, and my email is in the description, and we can talk about how to get better at this stuff, whether it be managing your own emotions or trigonometry or anything else that the whole college process entails. My name is Patrick, and this has been Prep Mindful.